we're working on it. I've been told that we announcing any pre-season friendlies? Yeah, we've spoken to a few clubs about pre-season friendlies. The problem is when you talk about Premier League and Championship clubs, most of those clubs their first teams don't spend any time in the country during pre-season. So when I worked at West Ham and Chelsea, they'd report back on the first day, they'd do their testing, they fly abroad, and then the commercial take over, and they fly from country to country to country playing all their pre-season games. You have to be very careful when you play an 11, because I've taken an 11, and there's been 16 and 17-year-olds playing in that, and the other team win 5-0, and they're all running around with their shirts over their heads, and they've beaten basically a load of kids. So I don't want to create a false economy. We need to make sure we're playing teams that are actually going to be relevant to what we're doing, and give me and the staff the best indication of where we need to be and what we need to be bringing in. Because if it gets to a stage where we're looking at it and thinking, I'm not sure we're right in that position, we've got to work fast to go and get a player that can do that. So. I think that we're already in the process of looking at that. We've sat down with four centre forwards over the last 10 days, between them scoring 140 goals last season. And one thing this club, and there's no criticism of what's gone on in the past, but last season, for all the possession that you had, I'm going to try and be as diplomatic as I possibly can, but the bottom line is it comes down to both penalty areas. You can play as well. We will play good football. I don't believe in just smashing the ball long. That won't happen. But it has to be football with a purpose. And the bottom line is you have to be clinical in both penalty areas. You have to be clinical when you're trying to score goals, and you've got to make sure you keep as many clean sheets as you possibly can. So they're the two main areas we're looking to strengthen, both in the back 4, 5, whatever it might be, and in the front line. That's what we want to do. There's obviously 3 or 4 lads I work with. There's a couple that were on loan from clubs who are out of contract that I'm currently talking to, and there's a couple of lads there that I thought, to be fair, once we got a system in place, once we got an environment in place, they thrived. And I think the fact that they've got League 1 and League 2 clubs after them at the minute, but they want to play for me. So we've talked to them, but you have to be careful not to just have a knee-jerk reaction and go, well, they did well for me there, hopefully they'll do well for me. It's a different environment. This is a massive football club, and sometimes that change of environment can actually affect the player, no matter how good he is, just by being in an environment where it's a little bit more pressured, which it is. This is a more pressure environment than it would have been then. And then you have to be careful. When I was at Braintree, they were already relegated when we put the run together that we put together. I'm not an idiot. I do know that there would be teams that would have already been on the beach and whatnot. I mean, Dagenham and Redbridge almost changed their whole side when Braintree won 2-0. So I'm not sitting in my chair going, well, look at what I did at the end of the season, because there is reality to that. However, during that time, there were some great results against big clubs, and there were some outstanding performances from some individuals, and we are definitely going to talk to those players. Well, I can be quite cynical at times, and I think that when a team's not doing particularly well, injuries seem to happen a lot more than they do when the team's doing really well. I've been in a lot of environments where a big game suddenly appears and everyone suddenly seems to be fit, and then when you've got a Tuesday night journey to excuse the team I'm going to use, a Gateshead, suddenly there's a little bit of tightness in and around the hamstring and groin area. But I'm not. Obviously, I don't know the players that well, so I can't comment on that. I mean, from a perspective of, we've brought in an S&C coach, strength and conditioning from the layman's terms, to make sure that our players are fit for purpose, and they'll have a proper gym program put in place. Every player is going to receive an individual program from both a football and athletic perspective, and it's those people's jobs to make sure that these players are fit and ready to train week in, week out. The environment that we're creating next year is going to be uncomfortable for some of these players because they won't have worked as hard as they're going to work next year.
No, Russ has not been engaged.
I haven't spoken to Russ yet, but only because of the fact of I haven't spoken to him yet. I need to sit down with him. I'm not sure whether he's been away or whatnot, but we're going to sit down and we need to have a chat because the medical team are crucial part of our staff because they have to make sure the players are fit and ready to play. From a staff perspective,
yeah.
No, the chairman's been quite clear from the start. I have a staff budget and I have a playing budget, and they're completely separate.
Right.
Although he's taken most of it, but. According to transfer market, it's 4-4-2. Yeah. I'm going to be brutally honest. Systems of play and formations are irrelevant. It's about round pegs in round holes and making sure that who's fit and available are able to play in the positions that you want to put them out in. Yeah. And I'm not a massive one for looking at opposition and trying to stifle the opposition. I'm more about us and making sure that whatever we've got to put out is the strongest we can put it out, and if that happens to be a 4-4-2, then that will be a 4-4-2. But I think that you have to look at it and think where can we surprise some teams, and I think once you become predictable,
4-4-2
yeah, once you surprise the team with the 4-4-2 that we play every week, we should be okay. Yeah, no one talks about the 4-4-2, okay? In fact, I'm going to do Blackmore a bit of justice here. It's actually 1-4-4-2. They get upset otherwise. You have to make sure you look after them. I think that we have to make sure that set pieces play a massive part of this league. I think it's something like 50 to 60% of goals scored are from set pieces. What's that? Well, yeah. I mean, although you did score a set piece against Braintree here, if you remember, that was decent. Yeah. But the recruitment process, we want to cover every base. So if the team wants to go toe to toe with us physically, then they're going to lose. If they want to try and outplay us, they're going to lose. That has to be our mentality. And yes, that does affect the recruitment process a little bit because we are looking at physicality, but I also think it's about mentality as well. There's a lot of teams out there that don't necessarily compete physically, but don't seem to concede set pieces and are able to go toe to toe with whoever they play. So, but I take your point on board, and yes, it is definitely something we're looking at. So I played one big man up front of skillful players. Yeah. What about the utopia of a big man and skillful players? Although, as long as it fits in with your 4-4-2. And if my 4-4-2 ends up looking like a 4-4-3 or 4-3-3, should I say, then I apologise. Or maybe even a 3-4-2-1, but yeah, it will still be a 4-4-2. Again, that's down to who we recruit, who we manage to get through the door, and I think that you have to have a style of play that fits your players, and vice versa. And that's what the recruitment process is. One of the things we talk to the players about is what's your strengths and what's your weaknesses, and that has to fit in with what we want to do. And if a player comes into this league and says I don't like heading the ball, then he's gonna find it tough. Just the same as if he turned around to us and said I'm not really that good with my feet, and I'm going to say, well, we do need a water boy, so it's we can, or girl, sorry, and yeah, but yeah, that'll be down to our recruitment process.
Mike's going to ask one here.
It does sound as if we're all going on a very pleasant new journey. And I'm sure I speak for everyone here in wishing you all the success that you're hoping for,
Thank you.
and for the team that you lead, and for us, supporters. We want to be supporters of a successful team. We've been looking forward to it for a few months, and I think we're on our way. So all the best to you, and we've got to do our part, and probably the hardest part is going to be patience, to wait for things to happen for a while. But I'm sure we're going to get there. Yeah.
I agree.
You can have two answers.
I think that it's simple. Wow. I might need to look at that word simple because I've got a different definition to how that is. But yeah, for me, it's about competition. It's about being competitive, and we have to be realistic in the fact that if we were to stay in the National League, that's going to be on the back of Gateshead's demise, unfortunately, which is not nice to see. So the realism is this club wasn't knocking on promotion doors last season, so we have to look at making them competitive and making sure that whether that's the cup competitions, the FA Cup, whatever it is, winning's a habit, and we need to make sure. I suppose the easiest way to say it is my main target is to get the club winning consistently, and wherever that takes us will take us. How can you talk about league positions? I mean, there's lots of things can happen that can go against you. So from my perspective, the main target is winning as many football matches as we possibly can. Hopefully getting ourselves, and I like the term as it's Mike, isn't it? Yeah, that Mike used, that it's a journey, and getting on a journey that actually everyone's on board with. And if that takes us to playoffs, if that takes us to automatic promotion, if it takes us to a mid-table finish and a massive cup run and we get to whatever that takes us to. Just did I say when we get to Wembley? I never said we were going to be playing there. No, Salford and Fylde, there was 80,000 empty seats. We can all go. Listen, I don't want to sit here and say, I guarantee you this is going to happen, because I don't want to be lynched as I'm going down to get a sandwich. But the bottom line is, one thing I can guarantee is we're going to try and win as many football matches as we can. Hopefully playing a style that will keep you guys cheering on the sideline, and that's going to be our target, to be competitive and win football games. I think you have to be really careful when you prioritise the competition, because, like I just said, habits are easy to come. They're really hard to get rid of. And I never understand why, if a club's winning constantly in the league, why they would sacrifice a cup competition, because the bottom line is that you could go and lose that game potentially, and that has a knock-on effect, because even if there weren't players involved in that football match, the team still lost. Now, I'm not saying that we won't have to utilise the squad to do that, because obviously we have to be conscious of the fixture congestion and making sure that we aren't getting as many injuries as that chap mentioned before. But I want to win everything. Who doesn't? If they had a Tiddlywinks competition and my Aldershot first team players could enter it, we'd go and win. That's the way it has to be. But like I said to you, we have to make sure. I suppose prioritise is a great word. Yes, we will prioritise winning. And if that means we are going to win a cup, that means we're going to win the league, it means we're going to win the playoffs, it means we're going to win the fight to finish wherever, then it's about winning. Yeah, I think you have to have your best players on the pitch, because otherwise, if you know that I'm on the bench, but you know what, a couple of weeks I'm going to get a game anyway, because the gaffer always rotates it around. I think you lose a little bit of that hunger and passion. And obviously there's going to have to be times when you look at a player and go, we have to manage him and understand that he's on the verge of burnout, which is why we're bringing in a sports science background. We're doing a deal with a university. They're going to supply us with the data and information that we need to make sure that we keep an eye on the player load, so we know that if a player's fatigued. But everyone fear the best players play, and the players that are performing the best will play, and that has to be our age, because that way there's competition, and as long as it's healthy and it's controlled in the right way, then competition is good. I think we've lost a little bit of that. It's become quite a fearful word in this world now, isn't it? Competition. I want them to compete. I want them to have to fight for their places, because I want to see the hunger. Because we know that at least when they get on the pitch, there's going to be a hunger to want to keep their position, bare minimum. So yeah, no, it's about the best players on the pitch. Yeah, I'd like to think he's quite happy. I've spoken to him pretty much 3 times a day, every day since I've been the job. Reece generally asking for the world. He wants to be captain and take all the throw-ins, goal kicks and corners. And I've said to him, you score 40 goals this season, you can do that. That's no problem. I rate Reece. I was actually fortunate enough to just kind of mentor him when I first came into first went into Braintree, and he's a hungry boy. He's obviously, his brother's gone on to do great things, and I think he sees that as a personal challenge, and I hope he wouldn't mind me saying that he has aspirations of playing league football, and I genuinely believe he has the ability to do that if he's given the right environment, shown a little bit of love, and he's made to feel that he's really a part of the team. He wants to be a part of the journey that hopefully we're going to be on as a club, as a community, and yeah. I can't comment on whether he was injured or not, apart from he wasn't. No. No. To be fair to Reece, he found going from part-time to full-time football quite a struggle at first, the training demands, and that's why we do have to be a little bit careful with where we recruit and who we recruit, because we need to hit the ground running, and so that will have to play a little bit. But Reece is a goal scorer, and who doesn't need one of those? I'm quite lucky because, I don't know, living in Essex, you're quite lucky, but yeah, I was born and bred there, so I'm based near Stansted Airport, but my in-laws live about half an hour away, and they have a spare bedroom, so and they won't charge me rent, so that's nice. But commuting for me is not an issue, because the bottom line is I spend most of my time on the phone when I'm not on the grass, so I try to get all my phone calls done before I get to the club, and then I can just relax. No, I mean, it's fine. I thought you was offering a lift. I just he's in.
It's actually a really good question. I was talking to Shahid because I was actually looking. I'm presently in Chislehurst, which is in Kent, but my wife's persuaded me to move over this way, so I've been looking at Guildford and particular Hinchley Wood and
That's
Esher.
money though.
So if there's any estate agents in the room, I can definitely have a chat over the next few weeks, because I'm in the process of actually moving a little bit closer to this way. So it's actually, that's not a big reason, but it was quite apt that when Danny rang me and he told me the club, I was like, okay, that's convenient.
I'm actually at 6 as well, 10 minutes from Danny, so I'm actually going to jump in with him. He doesn't know yet. he's going to jump. You're jumping in something. Hey, as long as you get something nice and long for me. I'm 10 minutes from Danny in Essex as well. I'm fortunate enough to have a very flexible working life outside of football, so that I can be here and with my phone and laptop. So and I'm young, so I'm not as old as these guys. So I've got loads of things left.
Well, it depends who we're playing, when we're playing them.
Are we going to go to Barrow? Are we going to go by train?
I'll be honest, whatever is the best way for the players. If it means we go up the night before, we'll go up the night before. If we need to, the chairman's been great. He's basically said we'll sit down once the fixtures come out, and you just tell me how you want to travel, when you want to travel, and he's backed me on that. So it'll be the most comfortable we can make it for the players to make sure that they're in a good place. I think it's a great question because travel's key. If you're travelling and the players have already got their backs up before they've even stepped off the coach, it's difficult to motivate them. So one thing I would say, other than carrying them around on golden thrones, it's hard to keep players happy all the time anyway, but we'll do it. Well, it's interesting, I'm onto the shared calendar now, and it says report back for pre-season for the 27th of June, and I'm like, well, that's not happening. We're back on the 24th, we'll be back doing our testing, and the players will be expected to report back then fit for purpose. And we need to, as I said, we need to get a lot of work into them before we start playing, and they need to understand the environment, they need to understand what we're about. And most importantly, if a player turned around to me and said, it's a bit early, I probably would shut the door and say thanks for your time, but no thanks, because the hunger has to be there. By the way, that's the first time I told the chairman we're coming back on the 24th. As you just said something really nice to him about us. It's like, well, you can't really go against that one, can you? From a squad perspective, the nucleus, what we've allowed ourselves to do, we want to have, I'd say, probably 14 players that we know are going to be with us next season. And what that's enabled us to do is, because of our links with clubs and agents and whatnot, that we've got a nucleus of players coming in as well who want to fight for a contract at this football club, and that's how we see it. Obviously, we have to evolve and we have to adapt. If we end up having 17 because we know that these are dead certs, then we will. If it's about having a smaller number, then I have no fear of that, because the bottom line is, come the first week of the season, our squad will be in place, we'll be ready, we'll know what we're doing, the players will know what they're doing, and then it's down to us to make sure that we make that consistent. Yeah. We've got about 8 or 9 boys at the moment who we're happy with. They seem to be happy with us. We've got to dot a few I's and cross a few T's just to make sure that it goes through. And then as I said to you, it's literally like Britain's Got Talent. We've got all these people all over the place, and he fits in with that, and he doesn't fit in with this. And what we've also got to make sure is we've got a depth chart, and I don't. Forgive me if I don't want to sound patronising if you know what a depth chart is, but basically you have your formation of your team, your ideal formation, 4-4-2, and you list down your players in those areas, your targets and whatnot, and we have to make sure, again, it's not just we react because a good player comes up and we think, oh God, we've got to sign him, he's available, and then you realise actually it doesn't fit into what we want to do, or he pushes out someone who we do think fits in. So, but yeah, we'll make sure that the squad is very competitive, especially with the support of the academy, to be fair, because we've already had a chat about 3 or 4 players that we hope will be training with us on a regular basis, and not just to make up numbers.
Brilliant.
I think that it has to be more than me, if I'm honest. We had this conversation probably last week around the players. We have to understand the players a little bit. Some of them will travel, they need to get off early, whatever you want to say, but the bottom line is they have to make the effort to walk through wherever they need to walk through to make sure that there's a presence there. That's going to be the rule. The rule will be there will be a door that they're allowed to leave through, and that will inadvertently be at the end of having to walk through to make sure they engage with supporters, sponsors, whatever it might be. Because the bottom line is, and I do understand it in the world of football, as mercenary as it can be, and it is about looking after number one, because if it wasn't football, no one would question it. If I spoke to Waleed earlier and was talking about the analogy with the banks. If you worked for HSBC and Barclays come along and said they're going to triple your salary, there isn't a human on the planet that wouldn't say, yeah, you've got to take that job because it's much better for you and your family. Players have to look after themselves. However, they do have to buy into what the culture we're trying to create, and that is, it's almost, without the cliche being thrown around, a one club mentality, that everyone's in it together. So myself, the staff, the players will be a big presence next year, regardless win, lose or draw. I think from my perspective, you're almost looking for a hybrid of those type of teams, because you look at a Liverpool, you look at their ability to press, their ability to win the ball back, especially in key areas. And we talk about dominating possession, and you've got me on my high horse now because I'm going to go with this. So if you want to go now, you might. But everyone talks about dominating possession, but they very rarely talk about dominating territory and actually dominating the areas of the pitch that make it viable for you to win football games. And I think what Liverpool have done this year, and Klopp's done a great job with them, the intensity they work at, beating the right areas, they win the ball back high and give themselves without going too statistical, they have to make less passes to score goals than a team that would sit back and defend. So that intensity is definitely something I'm looking at. But you look at any of the top 6 sides, some of the football they play, if you could blend that all into one team, you'd be unstoppable, wouldn't you? And I think that we have to do what the best we can to make sure we have that intensity in and out of possession, but we also have the capability of players that can handle the football. I want them to be able to play and not feel the pressure that I've got a man on, so I've got to lump it 50 yards over the pitch, and hopefully someone can run on the end of it. We want to eliminate as much hope and guessing as possible, and more factual in the sense of, I know that this is going to happen because we do this, and that's how we want to work. From my perspective, thank you for making the time and the effort to come and see us. As I said to you, hopefully you can see a little bit about what we're trying to bring to the club, and I know actions speak louder than words, and we'll be the first to be accountable for it if we don't do what we say. So, and I have no problem with that. We are going to hang around, so I'm starving hungry. I've got a nice gluten-free salad, thank you. Just so you know, if you do want to bake cakes and things and bring them for us, I'm a celiac and I have an allergy to gluten and wheat, so if you could make sure it's gluten-free first, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. As I said, we're around. Enjoy your